Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and Johannes Langguth, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
Welcome everybody. My name is Alexander Greb and you're listening to Transformation Every Day, expert insights on SAP and beyond. The podcast where we talk innovation, technology, and digital insights from the people shaping our future. Today it's all about data science. I'm joined by two fantastic guests from BASF, Jasmin Weimüller and Kate Nazarova. They're not only top data scientists, but also known for their own podcast, Diaries of a Data Scientist. Jasmin leads AI enablement and training at BASF, while Kate is a senior data scientist who loves tackling real-world challenges. We talk about their journeys into data science, why staying curious beats chasing buzzwords, how AI is changing their daily work, and you'll get their honest views on connecting tech teams with business teams, why empathy matters, and what makes collaboration succeed. So join us now as Jasmin and Kate share the realities of working with data and AI. On this episode of Transformation Every Day. Let's get started.
Did anybody of you, from a customer perspective, by the way, take a look at what the OEMs with Sapphire and so on is doing? Or is this something where you say like, okay, this is something what happens in their bubble and I do my own stuff?
So from my side, I do see what, for example, happens with SAP Joule from the AI area side, right? But very much like tunneled or focused on this AI area. So I guess there's other innovations around that. But since it's already so much to keep up with, like I think you really have to prioritize where you put your attention. And for me, that's more the SAP Joule things and all of the other advances in the AI area.
Yeah, and for me, I guess you will know that throughout this episode that I'm much more interested in the science than marketing whatever is happening on the market with the products and stuff. So I'm not usually looking at the different products. I'm more interested into getting to the numbers and formulas in there.
Is your interest in that space, of course, let's say a little bit rooted by what is happening in, or what kind of strategy exists in your surroundings? Or do you say, I'm absolutely free and I want to check what's happening in the world left and right, no matter maybe what politics is?
From my side, I guess yes, because it is also about not also, it's always about a science. At least from my side, it's never about like politics, marketing, PR strategies, whatever the business is using right now. The data science feel like as a tool in there, right? But it's as long as it is written in technical language, as long as we're not having like tons of buzzwords in there, it will definitely keep my attention.
Yeah,
Definitely.
From my side, I would say, since becoming a team lead, you have to take a little bit more care of strategy, political, and organizational discussions. In any way, it's such a job where you have to keep yourself up to date. The borders between what is now work and what is like your personal interest and free time, it's very, very hard to say this is exactly the cut. Obviously, I try to keep myself updated about all of the things where I have connections to from my work side. But also, since there's a lot of personal interest, I think this goes way beyond what you would usually expect, like, just for work in that position. And then, as Kate said, I think it's way more driven for where's my also my interest lies. So where I'm coming from for my master's, I was super always interested in computer vision. So naturally, I'm really much, my attention is a little bit biased there in that area, for example, or having had a history work experience of SAP for 5 to 6 years. Obviously, I take a little bit closer look about what's coming there than maybe what would be from the just work connections.
And the connection is great here because we are recording and we have quite some crowded house today. 2 guests, 2 moderators. I think we still will get that running. We have Jasmin Weimüller and Kate Nazarova, of fame by their own podcast that exists, which is Diaries of a Data Scientist. And I think it's available everywhere. So wherever you get this podcast, you also are able to listen to them. And we got Johannes back from...
Welcome.
international travel with the voice a little bit stressed, but I think we get that through because I really need him today. I'm what we found out already, the business administration guy, which is fine and funny, but he's probably the one who was able to talk a little bit more in depth with our guests as being a former data scientist nerd himself, which is great.
We will see whether I survive the conversation, Alex.
Never you
Yeah,
have
just
been
be
more
glad
valuable for
that
me
you
than
ask the
today.
questions and not the other way
Yes,
around.
yes.
I mean, you can be chill.
Since we are so many, maybe each one of you could give maybe 5 seconds introduction. Jasmin, do you want to start with you?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jasmin. Data scientist by training, but turning into team lead and nowadays responsible for AI enablement and training in my workplace, which is BASF. This is also where I got to know Kate, and a lot of things happened after that because we both have so much like love and interest and passion for the topic of data science. And very happy to be on the other side today and be a podcast guest instead of a host. So I'm actually really, really relaxed right now and love to see where the conversation goes.
Perfect. Yeah. And then I will continue. Also, one of the co-hosts of Amazing Diaries of a Data Scientist podcast. My name is Kate, and I'm a senior data scientist at BASF. I've been working in a lot of fields on really lots of topics, computer vision, traditional machine learning. Right now we have AI and all of this stuff, and etc. And yeah, very much happy to be on a podcast today with you guys.
Which is awesome. And the interesting thing with both of you is that we can definitely count you to the, let's say, seasoned veterans in that field already, because you started with that topic before it became cool. How come?
I love it very much, actually. I also was thinking about that before like our recording, and I was like, that's actually true. We got into the field not because it was overhyped or because like you got a lot of success in there or because you got a chance to be, I don't know, noticed or anything, but you still got a precaution to get in this field. And I guess from my side, it was never pretty much a moment in the history of my life that I was like, I'm going to be part of this activities, part of this field. For me, I guess it was very much developing gradually. That I talked about this, and I guess in a couple of different podcasts. That my parents they decided to put me into mathematical/physical school when I was 7 years old. That was not my choice. Yeah, that was not. They did not ask me, or do I want to go with that? And I was like, yep, okay. You're my parents. You gotta decide whatever I want to do in my life. So, and from there, I kind of converted into and I guess developed into this technical scientific bubble. And after graduation, I was like, okay, there is pretty much no one option for me but to go to mathematics and statistics. And it was very much logical. Yeah. Like it's really logical. You don't need to learn anything. You don't need to really like, hustle around that. Just try to understand how it is happening, just to try to understand the concept and you nail that. And then after being in this mathematical bubble, I was very much it got my attention, the computer science part itself, that I look at the screen, I see the numbers, I see the letters, which are English, which I supposed to understand, but I'm looking at the screen and for some reason I'm like, what is happening right in there? How can you develop anything with this like 10 lines of whatever is written in there? And I guess this curiosity that I just didn't really get what is that and how should I work with that and how it is even applied and how it's benefiting the society. I got into this field just because I was very much curious.
And you wanted to read the metrics.
Yeah.
Maybe just a quick follow-up one. I mean, you were kind of forced in that mathematical technical
Yeah.
field early on, and we discussed that before we actually started the recording of this session, right? It's so important to have a good understanding of the fundamental models of kind of to also be able to interpret the outcome. What's your perspective, Kay? What can we do to make more people interested and not forced in that topic?
Like to understand the models,
Yes.
to understand the algorithms.
Maybe also the career path.
Not just the career path, but really the fundamentals, the models. Because I think what I observe, what I feel there is a lot of fuss right now about it. So people artificially jump on it, but I believe as much as it's important to understand the use case, it's also, I mean, you study statistics. It's the method how you get there, right? That helps you to interpret what's the outcome.
Definitely.
And we need more people.
Definitely.
How to improve here.
Honestly, so the idea, the fundamental, at least for me, idea is that we need to divide not the society, not the people. Let's say we need to divide them by the interests. And if you really naturally leaning towards that field, you really got excited when you are solving the equation. I'm a weirdo. All the time when I'm bored, I'm solving derivatives and anti-derivatives. So for you, Chen, understand. Jasmin as well. All the time when we're like speaking with Jasmin, she's started counting from the zero, which is very much computer science kind of mindset, yeah? And this is amazing. When you're really like naturally in that field, there is no even question for you how I cannot know that or why I should not know that. It's pretty much the same as being in the physical field and doesn't really know how the physics or like gravity is working. Come on, you don't need to really explain that when you are in this field. But once you're not that naturally person, but for some reason you want to get into this field, we have a little bit of the problems which are happening right now. Yes, that we're having like non-technical manager leading technical project, which is a disaster. So I don't really think, like at least from my perspective, that we need to force that. I think that we need to deeply understand as a person, what are you gravitating towards? Not because it is more money or because it is like fame or whatever you would have as a benefit out of there, but because you're a natural person.
So I can very much relate of solving complex equations. And by the way, I mean, it's a 90s thing. There is still this Reddit forum out, and there is where people ask for help when it comes to statistics and calculus. So I recommend you looking in there and helping people, not just doing it for fun, but also helping people and helping students. How about you?
Spending more time on Reddit.
How about you?
I think talking a bit more from the training and enablement perspective, and also exchanging with lots of other companies on that, I agree with Kate in that like no matter what position you are, like having also talked to a lot of senior leaders, you immediately see who of them is more like open for the technology, but from this kind of more business use case perspective, like what you bring in, Alex, right? And who immediately ask question where you're like taken aback and you can clearly feel and see from the question, there you have a person who also really put some thought behind it in their free time, who are not just like, interested in, oh, how can this maybe, help me solve business problems, but also to get 1 to 3 steps deeper. And obviously, I love also talking to these colleagues and getting a little bit deeper. And that's why it's so important that we have a sufficient amount of people, like you say, Johannes, who also are willing to get to the technical grounds and not just stay on the surface. And I think, how can we make this more attractive? To some extent, I also agree here with you, Kate, right, that you cannot force people, but I think you can help people get an easier access to that, because I can imagine that when you're not from that field, that it is quite intimidating and overwhelming to know where you can get started. And especially now, like with that hype coming, right, it's all around, and you're asking yourself, like, how do I ever get a grip on that topic? And I feel, you don't have to spend hundreds and thousands of euros or dollars, whatever, um, to get a better understanding, because I feel there's so many good resources and free resources on the internet where we're really privileged that we have that access. There's one or two really, really good books, like, like the Bible of AI. And we can also help recommend that maybe in the show notes here. Like, starting at least somewhere. And I think, like you say, Kate, you cannot dismiss that all of this is based on maths and statistics. So usually it's a good place to start to again refresh some of that statistics basics that you surely have, and understanding, having that good understanding that this is not like a black magic happening, but this is all based on probabilities and distributions. And I feel this is already helping you to get a better intuition. So I think it's mostly about intuition. When is something right? When is something wrong? People asking, how do I spot hallucinations? But at the same time, not having a good understanding about what are they really asking right now of the machine to accomplish, right? And asking something which is really, really out of the scope, and then being surprised that there's like a hallucination happening. And people who have a good intuition that this is about statistics know that they're currently like extrapolating a lot, which makes things way more uncertain.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think people Yeah, fully agree. People have like the challenge that they think a result of a use case is deterministic, right? But in fact, it's just a range, a curve. Yeah.
And it acts completely different than normal software programs, which do act deterministic, right? Otherwise, you would throw that away and start over again, right, and troubleshoot. But these kind of models, they are not deterministic, and that's what throws many people off. And sometimes can even, if they don't understand how this is working, can really frustrate them and also diminish their trust in such like applying that, because they're like, okay, but if this is not deterministic,
Definitely.
how can I be sure, and how should I ever trust that outcomes?
How deterministic was your path?
From my side, oh yeah, right, we skipped that. I just ended up here. I don't know how.
Let me come back to you.
Yes. Yeah, good question. I think my path started somewhere when I was around 16, and it started with me changing into like higher level education and having the choice of being able to already have business information technology as a 4-hour subject in school. And because here in Baden-Württemberg we have something that's called vocational grammar schools, which I found immensely helpful. And mine was like one for economics, and they offered business information tech. And honestly, without having that subject at school 4 hours each week and doing my A levels in there, I would have never had the confidence, never, ever, to go into that path as a like further education and career. Because even with like doing my A levels there and graduating super, super well, I had really trust issues in myself to say like, can I complete the study? So I was really, really insecure at the time. I find it so sad, because I just always like compared myself to this super, super nerdy stereotype of what a good developer has to be, like that you develop 24/7 around the clock, and in the free time you're doing a lot of applications and projects. And I wasn't that person. I was really, really good and when I was doing it, but I also had like more interest outside of like data science and computer science at the time. Nevertheless, so I did decide to go on a dual study, which I did with SAP, and I was very, very happy, yes, to do this track, because it allowed me to really like look at both sides, the business part and the computer science part. And I actually started it thinking, okay, if you want to be safe, you just lean more on the business admin side. Then you don't have to like get yourself out of your comfort zone and having to reflect on yourself and fight with this imposter syndrome that I had and sometimes still have. And in the end, what turned out is that the programming part, the computer science part, was just so much more fun to me. And like from each rotation, I just got more technical and more technical, which ended up with me being like able to spend 3 months in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley for SAP, which was amazing. So this was part of that bachelor program. And that's where the whole innovation come into my group topic caught me. And that's where I actually decided to continue with a master in data science and researching that. And this is how you really see how it wasn't cool yet back then. The first unis just started out bringing out the program. So I think at the time there were 3 unis in Germany who offered a kind of data science program. And the one that I decided for at the Uni Mannheim just started 1 semester ahead of the one that I started with, and with a group of 15 people. So it was also immensely small group. And I really, really enjoyed that studies and worked part-time as a data scientist at the time already. And for me, it was always the drive of being a detective. And I think that inherent curiosity that you have to have in that field, that like, when you have something unsolved, and this can be whatever. So like last week, because we moved, I couldn't find this one thing and I knew it was there. And I could not stop and I couldn't sleep until I found that one item in one of these boxes, in the very last box in the room. And I think this inherent drive of not letting stuff go until you find a somewhat like a solution to it, I think this is what is driving a lot of, say, engineering, computer science, and also the data science field. And if you don't have that, I think it's going to get quite hard to, to really also thrive in that field.
I mean, you spoke a lot why it's a great job and what you could, how basically you drive in solving problems. Could you maybe explain a little bit how a typical day looks like? Because Jasmin, it was you touching base on, hey, there's like technical problems, and then you have to speak about business element. That sounds like a crazy day. Like speaking to developers, probably speaking to senior management, connecting all the dots. How does your day or week look like?
Yeah. So maybe I can speak from my team lead perspective, and then maybe you, Kate, can like give you for your senior data scientist perspective, which will be different. And because, as you say, Johannes, I think there's a lot more to just just the project and the application that you're building itself. And I think that's why it's so important to have a team lead or have support or a project manager who really also has empathy for that technical building process and is able to translate that with the other business stakeholders. So for me, the day is looking like a lot of check-ins, also with the different team members and people who are part of that project, right? So it's a big part project management as well. It's a lot of, say, resource and capacity management for sure, but oftentimes where I do feel I can help, or where I can step in with my perspectives, is when it's about prioritizing features and prioritizing different, say, directions. So should we rather go with that, I don't know, smaller model and be ready in 1 week, or should we, take a little bit more effort and give in the end 2 different options to our stakeholders? And that's usually where I try to step in with my perspective, and also with having a little bit more of this, say, organizational strategic overhead and knowing about that, where I can help make the decisions. And people are actually really, what I felt is that people are really, really happy to get that decision support, right? Because I feel that's where, for many very data scientist driven people, sometimes it's very hard to have a good understanding about how will a certain thing affect the customer's perspective. What impact is this creating in the end? Because if you're so hang up on, oh, this is a super cool technical feature, but in the end this isn't helping your customer, it can be a little bit frustrating. And I think that's where I can help to be a little bit earlier in that process and not let that frustration build up. So a lot of check-ins with both sides, with the team members, with the project members, but also like a stakeholder. And obviously, like getting more into this enablement and a training perspective, I did also do a lot, again, content work again, which I enjoyed. So really working also on training programs, on sessions, executing a lot of these sessions myself, especially ones in the German community again, where you have to also be respective of, okay, this is not a Silicon Valley kind of audience. You need to be able to translate this into what is really important to this group of people who are not computer scientists, who are not data scientists. They're working in a completely different field, maybe like with a strong chemical background, and you still need to be able to explain to them why should they care about AI. And that's where I really felt it's good to not just have that superficial knowledge. I feel that's where really my data science background helped to also build, I don't know, credibility, because they were seeing like, right, she's actually from that field. She's not just, one of the recent AI girls, guys jumping on the topic. And especially when then a deeper question comes, and they do come, which I'm really happy about, you don't have to be concerned that you couldn't give like a substantial answer to it. Yeah, so a good mix, I would say, about check-ins, project planning, a lot of sessions that we did in the past months and still do. Some external events, which I'm also super happy about, to exchange with other companies how they are doing it, and some content work. So there's no typical day. It's more like a typical week, mixtures. But how is it for you, Kate, as a senior data scientist?
Opposite polar. I would say, honestly, totally quite opposite. Like, I've been thinking about that, like what you were speaking. And maybe for our listeners, one of the things that I just want to share with you is that it is not like job comes to you, or like workload comes to you and like falls on you, but actually you define and your work and your tasks and your priorities and what you want to do. And really what I want to emphasize that here, that if you have an amazing team lead, this person will give you the projects and the tasks that you want to take on, like your strengths, and will, let's say, minimize the tasks that you're like, I don't want to touch that. Like, for example, for me as a data scientist, yes, I don't want to touch any data engineering, anything that are in that field. in the technical area. And the second part that I just wanted to share with you. So usually when we are on the very early stages in our career or in the university on the master's, on the data science position, fields, what you would think and what you would hear from your professors in the uni that, oh, you were gonna like do, I don't know, modeling 24/7. It will be your 100% like workload. But actually, you will rotate between data cleaning, speaking to the stakeholder, doing the actual implementation, maybe doing deployment, and etc. And the best mixture in here is to rotate that. So if you will go ahead and do just data cleaning for, I don't know, 1 month, you will go crazy. If you will be tackling really hard mathematical optimization problems for a month, you will go crazy. You will go crazy pretty much with everything with data science offers you, unless you rotate that and having a nice mixture. Maybe right now you're doing hard implementation, but later today you will be speaking to your business stakeholder and you'll be like, that's like vacation for you, sort of speaking with the people after this like tedious stuff of a hard coding phase. So, and how is that for me? Yeah, that is why I said that you define whatever you're doing at work. For me, I'm not only doing the programming. I would say the programming is like the least part that I'm actually involving into. And for me, it is firstly more AI enablement. So speaking with the business people, telling them about the capabilities, about the limitations. So we're not going to the moon. We're not doing the rocket science here. We're not, and also at the same time, we're not, this is not like, I don't know, 2 months course that you can take in order to understand and do it by yourself. So we have different kind of parts on the expectations and also like different people on this like Gaussian bell shape, if you would imagine this one. Yeah. So we have this part. And then the second part, which I'm very much into, and this is like heart of like my heart and part of my soul is the students. So I'm very much into collaboration with the universities and doing the actual research projects and doing technical supervision of the students that are on the master's degree. So for example, right now we cannot name them up, unfortunately, some projects with the LMU, for example, and I'm doing the project with the university, doing technical supervision on the students. We're doing mentoring sessions with them. This is really amazing because what is happening in there, the students, they will ask you questions that you perhaps might not be aware of. Like, when you are in the industry, you are doing this 8 hours a day, and you sometimes don't really have a lot of time to understand what is happening outside of these hours because you was bombarded with the code and hard stuff that you want just to chill a little bit. And then when the students come to you, you gotta just feel more alive, and that you will feel yourself like you're still back in the days, fresh in the uni, and you're just go ahead and studying with them, learning.
But this is a 2025, let's say, typical week of a data scientist.
It's
for
my
the
typical
outside
day.
world. Exactly. For the outside world, 3 years ago when ChatGPT came up and so on. For everybody now AI became present. And now everybody is AI somehow in their LinkedIn profiles. And now we have LinkedIn professions called prompter and something like this, which is quite interesting, by the way.
Prompt engineering is dead.
Prompt engineering, exactly.
Oh my God.
But for you as a data scientist, was this change so big, or do you say like, hey, that's just something which happens in the perception of the outside world that this topic became so big? For us, it did not really change anything because we were on that path already all the time before.
I think that, like, as a data science perspective, you're asking, or what is perspective?
As your personal perspective, working in
the
the
project.
world, on the project, in data science, working with AI, and so on.
I think definitely yes. And let me just talk from a data science perspective because I really 100 believe, and I can go on record with that, you cannot be a data scientist without having a proper degree and an experience. So for me, it's no go, honestly. And once we do have this hype, which is really amazing, firstly, yes, people got more into this field, which means probably we have less and less people that are not aware of this effect or that product. But with that, you have different kind of certain areas. So I very much enjoyed that our data science bubble became more inclusive, more open to pretty much every single person that has the internet connection and a cell phone to enjoy the outcomes and the values of the product. But with that, we have different kind of shadows. Yes, as a metal, you always have positive and negative sides, which is totally fine. And I would think that how it redefined firstly, definitely right now it is a really nice cool word, which I've just learned a couple of weeks ago, vibe coding. Yeah. That you as a data scientist, you don't really need to bump your head over the table, trying to understand why this is not working and what you have to do to make it work. Right now, it's pretty much solvable. And honestly, this is that we're joking with the other guys at work that right now, if we would need to go for the technical interview, probably we will fail that because you need to prepare right now yourself before that one. Because right now we have copilots, we have GitHub Copilot, we have AI assistant on Databricks, and pretty much everything is done by your natural language. You don't really need to do the same much of the tedious work that you had to do a couple of years beforehand. Yes, but with that you have different kind of open doors as well. That go into the meetings, people are more interested into, like, they've heard about the AI, they heard about the product, they've heard about the opportunities, and they're more bombarding you with the questions. They're more into getting new projects, and you are more delighted with that. On the backside of this part is going to be more people that are afraid of this. They're more resistant about that. And I guess all of us, we know right now that people are afraid that AI will take their jobs or positions in the future, and etc. Right? That's those kind of negative effects. And also probably on the, I see the effect on the other position as a data scientist, that for some reason for people it feels that it's so easy. It is, as I said, a couple of weeks course and you can go ahead with that. And I guess it's just another side of Gen AI era that we got into. So we have to fix this a little bit and take care of that.
Now a little bit of a provocative question. What is the outcome or the output of a data science project? Because Jasmin, something that you said, and I just noted it down, it was very interesting. You said it's an application, and that's literally so different how most people look at this. Like most people would say it's a use case that is part of a process flow of an overall application scenario. So what made you say the outcome or the output is an application?
I mean, in my work, I'm often also wearing that kind of this business hat, talking to a lot of stakeholders, right? And this is, I mean, and there it's actually, I think, really good that we do make the transition from, we're not talking tools, we're talking about what do you want to do with that? What do you want to change in your business workflow? What do you want to change in your processes? I think that's very, very important there, because from a, say, company perspective, in the end, that's the goal. It's not the goal of an industry company, to produce IT applications. That's not our work purpose. Our work purpose is, for example, for our work, producing chemicals. So that's the ultimate thing that we need to influence, as a variable, right? Nevertheless, having the hat on here and talking to an audience who's also interested in the technology behind it, in the end, this will boil down to some form of, say, things happening differently on the technology landscape side, right? I mean, you do influence business processes in the way that you do something different that has the organizational, the human perspective to it, of course. But in the end, it's the reality that we're trying to build data-driven processes, right? And that means you need to have applications that are integrating and are supporting you along that whole journey. And that's why I was talking more about applications, thinking about when I talk to the team members, on the project members on the data science part, right? They have that tool, they have that application perspective, and it's my job to be that bridge to our business stakeholders who have the process and the workflow. And I mean, and very, very good. Sometimes you have someone like Kate who has that clarity and that understanding from her own and knows that horizon, that in the end, of course, we want to make that customer happy, and we want to also build not just what makes them happy, but what is also the right thing to do for that business process, and is inherently already like driving towards that outcome. And sometimes you need to have a little bit more support of translating and being that bridge, which is then where someone like with my role would help and support and step in to exactly do the translation.
Maybe zooming in here a little bit, like if you say, yeah, you build application and they're part of a process flow, like historically, a lot of process projects were focused on limiting the variations of a process to kind of have a sequential flow and kind of make sure it's streamlined and standardized, a big thing, low cost, In the era of AI, do you think that should be the focus? Do we require sequential process flow with less variance, or shouldn't we offer more in sense like we're opening up to as long as it gets you the job done, the variations how you get there will differ case by case if you use one of your AI applications or if you just go somewhere else. What's your perspective on this? It's a business question, sorry, but I would be
no,
interested
it's
to hear.
fine, but it's a very, very tough question and one with a lot of say uncertainty in it, right? Because I feel it will really depend on the role in. Like if you're a software developer and you have a certain outcome that you have to generate, like you have a definition of done. Let's say it like that. Like ideally, you have that, right? Or you, as a enterprise architect, Johannes, you have that. And one could argue that it doesn't matter how you end there. Like it just matters that you stay in cost, in budget, in quality, and so on, right? Like a good project manager would ask you to. So I would say, like with some of these jobs, which are super, super, say, creative, and where there anyway is no blueprint at all, because nobody can tell you, like, was this now the one optimal way to get there or not, and nobody could probably find that answer for you. I think yes, it will. I mean, you can insert and inject AI along that way, and just become more efficient along that way, and you are pretty flexible with one day you, I don't know, using Perplexity, then Perplexity is not in anymore or not like on par, and then you're using something else to support you. But I do think that there's still many, many roles which are way closer to real business processes, in that sense that, you're handling physical products, for example, physical items, you're handling production plans. I don't know, like in an industry company, you do have physical assets. And I do think that I mean, sometimes you have external factors like governance and like governmental regulations that you have to account for, which do force a company to stay into somewhat more streamlined processes. Yeah. And also, like, a way different set of risks attached to it and documentation needs. I think it's just the reality, right? We can say that we try to reduce bureaucracy along the way. Yes, and that's right. But you do have a certain amount of things that come also from external factors and documentation and risk side. And there, I think you need to find a way to integrate, like you have data driven processes, which doesn't mean that the processes are completely flexible and detached from any guidelines or any structures. I think you can still be data driven and have certain milestones where you need to hit and say, okay, this is a documentation milestone, this is a milestone where you need to inform other entity XYZ about what is happening here, and in between you have that flexibility. But it's just the reality that when handling this kind of more physical products, you have to have maybe a higher set of structures than when you're handling digital assets only, like being a data scientist producing code, or I don't know, being the front end developer developing an application, right?
And a lot of people are have the personal strengths, actually, I think, to go this path.
Yeah, I don't know if this was a sufficient answer, Johannes.
No.
I don't think we can find the ultimate answer to that, but it's a very good question, because I mean that's where SAP was coming from streamlining business processes and standardizing those, right?
And I think you brought up a very good point, right? There is that physical world, and maybe I was already like zoomed in too much the AI cases that are very driven like by virtual, like developing. I looked at the finance department, people like white collar workers. I think that's the right word, right? But
workers,
exactly. But you're right. I mean, of course, in a warehouse, and Alex is specialist for supply chain, I should say, right? So of course there is sequential flow, and with sequential flows there comes more, like you think about efficiency in that sequential flow, right?
And that's where you lose people in that conversation. I mean, if you go to such an audience and you just say, I is there and it's amazing, and now you can, I don't know, create a job description in half a minute by just doing this prompt and so on. And you have all of that. You can generate images and videos, and then they're like asking like, okay, nice, but can you show me something like how does this help my job? What is with regulation XYZ? How do we make sure to still have secure plans? It's there's a certain amount of say that they won't go away. And I think, yes, AI can absolutely transform that and help make things more efficient. Also, how you handle the whole governance and compliance things, right? But the fact that this is there and this will likely not go away and also shouldn't go away, you have to accept that. I think you can find some middle ground. It's not black or white here, right? It's not about transforming someone from that role and, setting for them the expectation that they're now working like an enterprise architect would work.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's interesting, right? How much people were exposed already to AI or optimization. I shouldn't call it AI, optimization problems in warehousing. Because when a couple of years back, I helped to optimize a warehouse, and they kind of had a kind of a wait time optimized picking schedule for the people that were actually picking. There was an algorithm, and technically there was a mathematical algorithm trying to optimize the wait time the person needs in the warehouse. So actually it has been there already for so many years, but now that the big hype about AI comes into play, I think so many people jump on these topics, right?
And again, that's why I mean, right? You can still be a data-driven process, but that's one of the ground rules. Why should you now have a large language model to make that decision on how you pick, instead of your very nice working mathematical optimization problem that you solved already years ago with very efficient algorithms, where you can show people actually, like, you can show them the decision front, and it's very also explainable to get into this topic of explainability, versus now asking a large language model, I need to pick XYZ, where should I get started? I mean, in the background you could have such an optimization solver, which would be nice, but it's not about now throwing away all of the knowledge that we have built up in the last 20 years instead of now just using fancy transformer models. That's not the case.
But the interesting point about this is that I think there's always something like a two-step way into approach this kind of optimization, because the first step is always that people try to automatize existing things, which is, from my perspective, a little bit something of a bottom line optimization. Yeah, because you continue to do the things you were doing all the time, you just add something to that which make it a little bit more efficient. Then of course the in my opinion, where true value lies in is the next step, where you start thinking like, okay, how can I completely rethink everything I do in that area based on the tools and the possibilities I have now, which is the top line, because you're not anymore thinking really about the efficiency topic, but about the effectiveness topic, like changing things. And the world is always changing and turning when this kind of efficiency mode gets done overridden by an effectiveness mode by the people who use that. Where do you see your discipline at that moment? Still optimizing existing things, or really working with the breakthrough approaches of doing things you were not able to do before?
I think, if I may comment first, Kate, and then you can jump in.
Yeah.
This is not a decision that we drive from the data science part, so it's not up to the data scientist taking that decision. I mean, you can propose, and obviously I think many people would decide from a data science point, for the more disruptive part, because there you just have more freedom in modeling and trying out things, compared to when you have like a set process and you're only allowed to touch this like smaller part, right? And then you have more side conditions that you have to account for, right? Always not as nice as having a greenfield approach and being very, very free from the data science side, obviously. But it's, in the end, from a company point of view, that's not the decision of the data scientist to take. And I think also it would not be fair to let them to shift that responsibility to that technical team member to take that decision.
Definitely.
I think it's the decision of the owner of that business transformation, because in the end, if you don't have a strong sponsor, if you don't have a strong owner of that business transformation, you can build an amazing application. You can have an amazing, proposal on how to update the business process. But the question is it in the end implemented? Is it going to be accepted by the people? And you need to have a strong owner and advocate for that, to also drive that beyond the non-technical process. Yeah. And that's in the end, I think, how willing is that person to take that added bigger risk of really breaking up that part, with also the outlook of possibly a bigger return on investment there.
So there the responsibility is, again, of course, as a business and a strategy, to understand the possibility to let you work on the big things and not just
It
on
can only be
polishing.
Yeah. I don't know, Kate, how often did it really happen that maybe like a customer or like someone came to you and said, like, do whatever you want, and I'm open for everything. This might happen, but I don't think it's the
definitely
regular thing.
You ask the wrong person, probably. So I can tell you kind of two perspectives here. So answering your question about how is that working with me, all the time when I'm having a use case with my business partners, we have, let's say, an agreement that they are responsible for the use case, for the business part of the use case, and I'm responsible for the technical part of the use case. That is for whatever I decide is needed to be done from the technical side, I'm not asking questions. I'm just going ahead with whatever I decided is going to work the best. And they just trust me. And what we're just doing regular checkups with them every week to see if that is working out for them. Yeah, this is what we're doing together. And the second part, what I wanted to say about this from the, let's say, technical perspective is that I really love to think about, let's say, all technical people or scientists, that we are very much infantile people in business sense. We only usually do care about technology. How cool is that to implement that, to have, I don't know, competition in our free time, who is going to write this part in 10 lines of code instead of 1,000 perhaps, and etc. Yeah, and the last thing that we're going to think in this direction is definitely budgeting, efficiency. I mean, like efficiency from the cost perspectives, how this will impact, what are the risks. This is not something that I guess like this is the number one priority from the very end. And what I very much love, we had a talk with Yasser Amadov. I very much love what he said. That is why we have people as Einstein who are very much cool in science, and let them do what they are cool at. And therefore, we have the best like CEOs, the best people that are doing business. Let them do this part, and never mix that.
Yeah.
But to let me jump on that what you say, because when you say you are infantile in business topics, the people I talk with who are the business decision makers and so on are probably as infantile in technology topics, which means we have now two parties where probably nobody is really able to do the translation 100%, which in my opinion is 100% important, because that's the only way more or less to get this kind of loop going where innovation and value happens. What do you think are possibilities to get that kind of understanding from both sides, or the kind of, you can call it evangelization from both sides, to get, let's say, a wheel rolling, which is in the end able to, now I'm using a modern word, which is quite often used in the SAP sense, to unleash the possibilities that the technical side is having and put that on the business. So in the end, we get the horsepower to the street.
Let me just maybe go ahead with that first. I have a pretty simple comment on that question here. So that is why all the time when I'm having conversation with the business partners, I usually start my use cases with a proper lecture. What is data science and how we're going to work together with you guys? And therefore, usually people are having this fear that AI will take control, that we are going, like, it's going to decide for us, yeah, whatever, like what is in there. And therefore, all the time, my first comment and first myth or misconception that we are delving into is that we have to work together hand to hand in order to solve a problem, in order to build a nice solution application. And you are responsible for business part, we are responsible for technical part. We're not working apart, we're not in the war, we're not on the both sides of the polar, we are together, and we're going together through this case. You are from your position, we're from our position. And that is why all the time it makes me sad when people are saying that I don't trust AI. This will take control over. No, you are controlling this because we are working together and we're maintaining this together and in constant negotiation and discussion with you.
Yeah. So from my side, I believe that, building empathy from both parties, I think it's the first necessary step to get to a more successful project delivery in the end and impact delivery. And like Kate said, I think education on both sides, I think is one very vital part there. And overall, I have to say that we are now, and like I say, mid 2025, we are so much farther now with AI, a general AI literacy, than we have been 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's amazing because also now with this upturn and hype around AI, many people now suddenly forming an opinion around that. And luckily, many people also do take some time to look into the topic before they're forming an opinion, which is still very good thing, right? And also on the other side, and that was exactly what my team took care of, was introducing broad trainings in companies that if you're like using AI, right, with the EU AI Act, we as companies were also like responsible to providing a sufficient level of education to the users, to the employees of that AI tools. And I feel like AI literacy, it's not solved, obviously, and it will continue to grow, but we have a way better status than we had 5 years ago around the topic. Way more interest, openness, and obviously like just like the demand side overall, I think changed way more than the supply side. So I think the changes on the demand side and openness towards the topic, they have been way bigger and significant than, okay, developers using GitHub Copilot. We've always been using tools that help us develop things nicer, like an IDE, right? And now that IDE has AI, so that's cool. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is, the question really is the ultimate goal to build two hybrid profiles, right? To have a business person that has as much technical understanding, and on the other side have someone like Kate really taking up that whole business part. And here I would really say that looking at someone like a senior data scientist, building more empathy around what is the actual business goal, and having this, say, sensitivity and awareness around we're an industry company, we're not Google Research, we're doing this with a concrete outcome and physical product in mind. I think this is necessary and really, really good. But as Kate said, right, you take away that freedom to really thrive and develop in the technical part. And that's actually where you want colleagues like Kate to spend the time on, so they can really, produce the kind of outputs why they are experts and why they are paid for. You don't want to make her a full business person and only have her develop 10% of the time. This would not be, I think, a good idea. On the other side, I think on the business part, you will naturally see more people coming into, I guess, such positions who have a little bit more affinity for digitalization, technology overall, and so on, because this is, I think, what you need as a company in future to survive and to still be profitable. So I think naturally you will have on the business side more people who have more affinity for the topic of technology and AI. At least that's my little bit perspective of where this could go.
You spoke about the demand and supply side, and I think you were touching a very interesting point here. There are so many of the OEMs now producing like embedded AI use cases, right? You see it everywhere popping up. Whatever vendor it is.
And OEM, you mean original equipment
like, for
manufacturer?
example,
in
a software provider,
Yeah.
software provider. Let's call it software provider. They're popping up everywhere. And what's your, like, if you get a business problem, could you guide us through the ideal scenario? How would you decide? Do you go like in the direction of an embedded use case?
Like a make or buy decision.
Well, make or buy. I think that's a core question. Who does that? Is it you, Kate, saying, no, I'm going to build that myself? Or is it you, Jasmin, deciding from a team lead perspective, hey, I'll rather guide only the fancy development things to my team to keep them excited? So how is your decision process ideally? How should it look like in general?
Johannes, are you sure it's not the enterprise architecture who do that kind of decision?
Ideally they should, but let's also be honest, it's a rare species, and they're not involved with every single use case / to quote you, application. You're practitioners of data science. And what is a practitioner's standpoint, how that make or buy decision should be look like? And it will obviously vary company by company because they value the different input criteria differently, which is perfectly fine. But I want to hear from a data scientist, how should it look like?
You wouldn't like my answer right now. I will tell you why. Yeah. I'm going to say this multiple times throughout this recording because just accept the fact that people that are working on the technical side and producing code, they are the budgeting, cost saving. It's like number one priority from the very end. We're not usually thinking about that. We're not thinking about this at all. And therefore, if you would ask me as a person who is developing, who has seen a lot of use cases, a lot of, fuck ups in there, and etc., I would always go for, I'm going to build this solution myself. There is a reason why I'm not using Databricks MLflow pipeline builder there, where you can just like on the UI, click the button, say, I want to do decision tree, or I want to do random forest, or I want to do, I don't know, like something boosted algorithms in there. Nope, I will never go for that. I would better work much more hours, not telling this anyone, but I will build it by myself because I know what is happening in there. I take the full responsibility for the result. If the stakeholders will come to me and ask me how this data point being generated,
fix it.
Yeah. Or can you fix that? I will not say that's Databricks. I have no idea what is happening in there. Let's ask them. No, I will say this is how it is working. I can explain every single step, every single decision being made by the algorithm. So therefore, my ideal world will be, I will always like open for the let's build it ourselves. And like regarding the idea how maybe it should work together, I very much love when this decision is been taken not by one person, but when a team lead has a conversation with the data scientists, with data engineers, with MLOps people,
enterprise
cloud
architect.
Yes, all of them. So we're sitting, all of us together, and we're like really trying to understand what are the pros, what are the cons. Everyone would have its own opinion, but that in the very end, we will get to the final decision, which is going to be supported by the majority of the people in there, because it's a technical decision and a business decision, and we have to be together. You cannot just put the responsibility on the one group or like the other group. So
yeah, I
Jasmin, what
fully
do you
agree
think?
with Kate. I mean, from a practitioner standpoint, I think it's always more interesting and attractive to be in full control of your solution and build it yourself. I think for most data scientists, that threshold is because I think nobody would argue to now say, okay, because I'm such a practitioner, let me now still compile my own code and not use one of the higher level language programming languages. I mean, like that's the real weirdos. They might exist, but majority of data scientists will say, I love my Visual Studio Code IDE, like let me use that. And also, as mentioned, use the available tools like GitHub Copilot to help you code. I think that's not where that threshold is. I think the threshold for data scientists from a practitioner standpoint is what Kat said, right? When it's about like, it's about building more complex models and then having to take a decision. How much control do you need about that model? Is this as easy as just, I don't know, reusing something from scikit-learn? Yeah, for easy problems, that's the way to go. You can control that, you can set your parameters, all fine. But if it's really about like a more complex, I don't know, optimization problem or like a bigger data science problem, and there might be an available solution outside, I think there's many criteria that flow into this make or buy decision. One being like, how much control do you need? Maintainability. Is it a startup offering that? Will it even exist beyond one more year, right? Because we also need like a longer planability. Obviously, the cost, how much effort is it to develop from our side? In the end, it's going to be a multi-criteria problem. As Kate said, optimally, there's many people involved, and ultimately, this decision is taken together on this rational set of criteria. I do think that it's way too short thought to just look at the pricing. One related question that often comes up in that area related to AI is, why are we even developing something ourselves? Why are we not just waiting for OEMs to put out something and reuse that? And the same thing with us saying, yeah, there still might be some issues right now, some limitations. People asking, okay, but why don't we just wait for 2 years and only then enter into AI field? And I think what you neglect when you put out such an argument is that organizations and people need a learning curve to adjust to the topic. And developing even like, suboptimal solutions right now means you have a learning curve in the organization with your experts, building tools and maturity around that. to also have a better positioning when maybe having to take buy decisions, to really understand what is a good deal, what not, what is a good product, what not. Yeah, to not just be at a lower leverage and having to take whatever they want to sell you. And also from a people organization standpoint, having made already experiences right now with even suboptimal, I don't know, AI tools, AI chat assistants, this helps people adjust to this new ways of working. And if you only enter that field in 2 years, when like the mountain of AI progress is already like there, and this feels unsurmountable by people. And it does help to rather get earlier on the train than later. Again, this doesn't mean that you spend thousands, millions, whatever on dollars on that, but already making your first experiences with this topic can be sometimes also a criteria why you maybe want to go into a make decision instead.
I hope the last question I have is not the most difficult one. At the moment, when we
it sometimes is.
That's why I have it exactly for that moment.
Cliffhanger question.
Of course, when we look, for example, in the SAP universe at the moment, now we have the system provider, we have the consultants going with full trumpets and we will bring AI into our customer environment and so on. And of course, they meet people like you who say like, oh, I know a lot about that topic. Tell me what you got. What, from your perspective, do you think the system providers / consultants at the moment are doing right? And where do you say like, guys, girls, you have to up your game in these and those areas?
Yeah, tough question.
It deserves its own episode, I guess.
Maybe we can give, let's say for the pros or for the good things and for the bad things, one aspect each.
Yeah, I think so maybe talking a little bit more generally, like in this kind of supplier conversation that I've been part of, like one thing that I've been seeing, which I think is good, is that it does sometimes feels less tool driven and more outcome business case driven, which I think is the right thing, because sometimes when you have especially like more technical people on that team, they are, as Kate said, right, we are very much like focused on, oh, this is a very nice feature, this is cool, I've developed the net for 2 months, you should want it, right? So I feel that in the conversations that I've been at, and this has already been starting in the past years, right? This is not just in the past months. That suppliers do care way more about, okay, this is the business impact that we actually need to generate for our customers, which I think is a very, very good thing. Something that I still see is where progress could be made, or let's say potential to improvement, is again increasing the authenticity and considering who are you talking to on the customer side, and not trying to just jump on the hype bandwagon and throwing around the kind of words that maybe people expect, buzzwords right now in such a slideshow. But just taking into consideration that also on the other side you have people that are knowledgeable and that have expertise, and just talking on a more, say, natural level with each other.
When we will go into maybe our second episode that will be together, because I definitely would like to have you back in a few months.
That's nice.
Talk about the progress. That would be awesome.
Perfect.
We have to stop for now. Yeah, we have already over an hour of very, very interesting podcast. I'm very, very grateful for you to join and to take part. Where can people get more of you?
LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Podcast,
the podcast,
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, but I think mostly LinkedIn. I guess it's our most active platform, right? Where both Kate and me and our Diaries of a Data Scientist page are very active. And yeah, we do also do quite some, say, outreach with external events. So if you ever happen to see us in such events, just come to us and connect and talk.
And also Medium.
Medium also. We will put all of that in the show notes, so nothing gets missed. And our shout out definitely is now follow you on LinkedIn, follow you on the Diary site, and definitely make a subscription on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or whenever people listen.
And thank you for having us. It was great being here.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
it
you.
was
Very
really
much.
nice conversation.
Thank you so much.